As we grow older, the dynamic between parents and children inevitably shifts. For years, you raise, guide, and sacrifice for your children. But one day, you might realize something has changed. They may ignore your advice, dismiss your opinions, or make you feel like a burden. This change in behavior can be deeply hurtful, especially when you feel disrespected by the very people you've invested so much in. If you're experiencing this, it's natural to feel frustrated and angry, perhaps even wanting to remind them of everything you've done for them. However, reacting with anger will only escalate the situation, making it harder to regain the respect you deserve. Instead, there are more effective ways to rebuild your relationship with your children and regain their respect. One of the first things to stop is chasing their approval. Many parents, especially as they age, fall into the trap of trying too hard to please their children. They may say yes when they want to say no, or put their children's needs before their own, hoping that it will bring more appreciation. The painful truth is that the more you chase their approval, the less respect you'll receive. When you stop seeking validation and start prioritizing your own well-being, your children will begin to respect you more. This is the first step in shifting the dynamic back to one of mutual respect. By making these simple changes in how you respond, you can shift the way your children perceive you. You don't need to argue or fight to be respected. Sometimes, subtle changes in behavior can make a significant impact. If you're facing a similar situation, the first step in regaining respect is not to demand it from others. The key is to stop acting like you need validation. Set boundaries, say no when necessary, and speak your mind, even if it's uncomfortable for them. When you start respecting yourself, your children will start seeing you in a different light. They'll understand that while you love them, you deserve respect and acknowledgement, just like anyone else. This shift can transform your relationship and restore the mutual respect that should be at the foundation of your family dynamic. When your children treat you with disrespect, your first instinct may be to argue, to remind them of all you've done, or to demand they listen. However, the truth is that arguing rarely works and often leads to more frustration. When was the last time an argument led someone to respect you? Respect isn't earned through fighting for it. It's earned through presence, composure, and the way you carry yourself, especially when faced with disrespect. If you react with anger, you may unintentionally affirm that your children have control over you. I once knew a retired teacher named Frank, who had spent years leading a classroom with authority and confidence. Yet, at home, his grown children started dismissing his advice and even laughing at him when he corrected them. Initially, Frank tried to argue back, attempting to prove he still deserved respect. But the more he fought, the more the situation worsened. Then one day, he decided to stop arguing. Instead, he started listening attentively, and he stopped trying to gain respect with words. He began carrying himself with the confidence of someone who already commanded respect. He spoke calmly, offering wisdom without needing to win every battle. Over time, Frank's children began to notice the change. They saw a man who didn't seek their approval, a man who didn't need to prove his worth. Slowly, respect was restored, not through arguments, but through his steady example. By leading with wisdom and grace, Frank was able to regain the respect that he deserved. Respect is cultivated through how you live and respond, not through fighting for it. If your children aren't showing you the respect you deserve, don't fight them for it. Instead, show them respect by how you treat yourself. Keep your dignity intact, speak with confidence, and most importantly, never lower yourself to their level. When you stand firm and graceful in your beliefs, they will sense it. Over time, they will start to follow your example, recognizing the strength in the way you carry yourself. Respect is not earned through confrontation, but through self-respect. As you get older, it's important to remember that how you view yourself will be reflected in the way your children see you. By maintaining your own sense of worth and composure, you set a powerful example of what it means to be respected, which will, in turn, inspire them to do the same. Another crucial step in restoring respect is withdrawing emotional dependence. As we age, it's natural to want affection, attention, and validation from our children. However, relying on them for emotional fulfillment can shift the power dynamics in the relationship. When they sense that you need them to feel valued, it puts undue pressure on them, and they may start to feel burdened rather than grateful. This can lead to impatience or irritation, and the more you chase their approval, the less freely they may give it. I once knew a woman named Helen, a kind-hearted mother who had devoted her life to her children. But as they grew older, they became busy with their own lives. Helen realized that her emotional dependence on them was causing tension and distance. She had to learn to find fulfillment outside of her children, allowing the relationship to regain its natural balance. Helen spent years waiting for her children to reach out. She hoped they would call, but when they didn't, she'd often call them instead. Each time she'd remind them of how much she missed them and how she wished they would visit more. But rather than bringing them closer, it only pushed them away. They began to see her calls as an obligation rather than something they looked forward to. Eventually, Helen realized that by constantly seeking their attention, she was unknowingly creating distance. One day, she decided to make a change. Instead of waiting for her children to reach out, she stopped calling first. Helen began to focus on her own life. She picked up new hobbies, spent time with friends, and prioritized her happiness. Surprisingly, her children started calling her more often. They began to respect her time and saw her as someone who had a full life of her own. This shift showed her children that she no longer depended on them for emotional fulfillment, and as a result, they valued her presence more. The key takeaway here is that when you stop relying on your children to make you feel needed, you shift the power dynamic in the relationship. They will begin to respect you not out of obligation, but because they genuinely admire your strength and independence. Another important step in regaining respect is setting boundaries. If you allow your children to treat you disrespectfully or dismiss your opinions, they will continue to do so. Setting boundaries doesn't mean creating conflict. It's about calmly and firmly deciding what behaviors are acceptable. By enforcing boundaries, you teach your children to respect you. Setting boundaries is crucial, especially when they are being crossed. Robert, a retired businessman, had spent his career leading with confidence and discipline. However, when it came to his adult children, he found it difficult to assert himself. They interrupted him while speaking, dismissed his concerns, and even criticized his lifestyle. At first, he tolerated this behavior, convincing himself that it wasn't worth confronting. But as time passed, Robert realized that by staying silent, he was inadvertently teaching his children that their disrespect was acceptable. One day, Robert decided to take action. The next time his son interrupted him, he calmly said, "You can continue speaking when you're ready to listen." When his daughter dismissed his opinion, he responded, "You don't have to agree with me, but I expect you to respect me." As his children continued to test his boundaries, Robert made it clear that if they couldn't treat him with basic respect, he would not spend time with them. At first, his children resisted, but over time they began to understand that their father was serious about his boundaries. They saw that Robert wasn't backing down and slowly started to respect him more. His actions made it clear that respect wasn't optional. It was essential for their relationship to thrive. By setting and enforcing boundaries, Robert regained the respect he deserved without creating conflict. He showed his children that respect is not something given freely, but something that must be earned through mutual understanding and behavior. If you want to regain respect from your children, it's essential to start by valuing yourself enough to demand respect. When you set boundaries and stand firm, you show them that respect isn't given freely, but is earned through mutual understanding. This shift in your approach will eventually lead to a change in how they treat you as they begin to respect you more. If you're finding yourself in a situation where your children don't respect you, it's important to ask yourself whether you're allowing it to happen. Without setting clear boundaries, they won't learn how to respect you. If you don't stand up for yourself, no one else will. Respect is not a given, especially in family dynamics, but rather something that needs to be nurtured and enforced. Another key action is to stop giving without appreciation. As parents, we often give our time, energy, and support without expecting anything in return. However, this can lead to resentment, especially if it's taken for granted or met with entitlement. When you continually give without receiving appreciation, you're not fostering love. Instead, you're enabling a pattern of disrespect. When you stop offering without acknowledgement, you begin teaching your children that your efforts are valuable and that appreciation is a crucial part of any relationship. This will not only help you regain respect, but also create healthier dynamics where both parties can thrive. Remember, it's not about withholding love. It's about ensuring your contributions are acknowledged and valued. Respect is not built by constant giving. It creates a sense of entitlement instead. When you give too much without receiving appreciation, your kindness is no longer seen as valuable but as something expected. The moment you stop giving, the response isn't gratitude but frustration or inconvenience. I once knew a man named George, a father who always went out of his way to help his children. He provided financial support whenever they needed it, dropped everything to assist them, and even rearranged his life to accommodate their needs. However, instead of gratitude, he was met with complaints. His children expected more, and when he finally needed their help, they were too busy to assist. One day, George decided to make a change. He stopped overextending himself, stopped offering help before it was requested, and most importantly, he started saying no when he needed to. At first, his children were frustrated and confused, unable to understand why he wasn't doing everything for them anymore. But over time, something shifted. They began valuing his time, respecting his efforts, and appreciating his presence. They learned the hard way that respect is earned, not given freely without limits. George's experience shows that sometimes setting boundaries is crucial to fostering respect in relationships. By taking a step back and valuing his own time and energy, George earned back the respect he deserved. It's a powerful reminder that respect is not a one-way street, and by standing firm in your own needs, you encourage others to appreciate you and your contributions. His generosity was not an unlimited resource, but rather a gift that comes with conditions. If you feel that your children don't respect your time, efforts, or kindness, it's important to step back and ask yourself if you're giving more than you should. Consider what would happen if you stopped overextending yourself. By teaching others that your generosity is conditional on respect, they will begin to treat it with more care and appreciation. Another crucial step to regaining respect from your children is to build a life outside of them. It's natural for parents to dedicate themselves fully to their children, But as you age, it's essential to maintain your independence and sense of self. If you've spent the majority of your life prioritizing their needs, they may begin to see you as someone who has no other source of happiness or purpose. People naturally respect those who have their own passions, goals, and fulfillment, and your children are no exception. When you rely too much on them for emotional support, entertainment, or validation, it can create an unhealthy dynamic. This dependence can make your children feel suffocated and at times even take you for granted. Instead, try developing your own hobbies, friendships, or passions that bring you joy and fulfillment outside of your relationship with them. Show them that while you love and care for them, your happiness does not solely depend on their attention or approval. By doing so, you not only improve your own well-being, but also encourage your children to respect your independence and individuality. I once knew a woman named Eleanor, a widow in her late 70s, who struggled after her husband's passing. She devoted herself entirely to her children, constantly checking in, offering unsolicited advice and hoping they would fill the void her husband had left. However, rather than bringing her closer to her children, her intense focus on them pushed them away. They visited less, their calls became shorter, and Eleanor found herself feeling more isolated than ever before. Then she made a transformative decision. Eleanor joined a book club, began traveling with friends, and volunteered at a local community center. She stopped making her children the center of her life and started cultivating her own passions and connections. And something remarkable happened. Her children began reaching out more. They were curious about what she was doing, admired her newfound independence, and respected her more. The lesson here is simple. When you shift the focus back onto yourself and stop waiting around for attention, you not only enrich your own life, but also invite respect from others. If your children don't seem to respect you, it might be because they see you as someone with no life outside of them. They might feel burdened or disconnected. But when you show them that you are living a fulfilling, independent life, they will begin to view you in a completely different light. By taking charge of your own happiness and well-being, you naturally command respect and create stronger, more meaningful relationships. To conclude, respect isn't something that can be demanded, especially from your children. It is something you inspire through your actions, how you set boundaries, and the way you live your life. If you've noticed that your children are treating you with less care or respect, the best thing you can do is not get angry. Instead, change your approach. Start by stopping the chase for their approval. The less you seek it, the more they will naturally give it. Lead by example. Your dignity will speak volumes louder than words ever could. Withdraw your emotional dependence on them, as being emotionally self-sufficient will earn you more respect. Setting boundaries is crucial because people will treat you as well as you allow them to. Lastly, stop giving without receiving appreciation. When you give without being acknowledged, it fosters a sense of entitlement rather than gratitude. By changing these behaviors, you shift the dynamic in a way that earns true respect. The key is to be confident, independent, and to set clear expectations for how you deserve to be treated. Your children will not only respect you more, but will also admire the strength and wisdom that comes with living a life of purpose and self-respect. Generosity, when taken for granted, loses its true value. It's important to cultivate a life outside of your relationships with others, especially your children. People naturally respect those who have their own sense of purpose, joy, and fulfillment. When you begin to focus on your own passions and well-being, something remarkable happens. Your children will start to see you differently, not as someone who constantly seeks their attention, but as someone who commands respect simply by being confident in who you are. By leading a life that prioritizes your personal growth, independence, and happiness, you naturally inspire respect. You'll notice that the respect you seek will come to you not because you demanded it, but because you've earned it through your actions and self-respect. It's not about chasing their validation, but about living in a way that shows you value yourself, which in turn encourages others to value you more. Thank you for joining us today. We'd love to hear from you. Please leave a comment below and share one thing you learned today and how you plan to apply it in your life. Your thoughts are valuable to us, and we appreciate your engagement. Reading your comments motivates and encourages us to continue creating meaningful content.